So I'll kick off by saying Happy International Women's Day. Exciting, exciting, exciting. And I am glad that you chose to hang out here with us. And I think this is going to be a really important conversation and a good time for all of us. So, welcome to Becoming Her. I think many of us arrive in seasons of life where we look up and realize like we've been doing everything right, working hard, showing up for family, raising children, building careers, and somewhere along the way, we start asking questions of ourselves. And sometimes it's a very quiet question like, where did I go? What happened to me? Right? Or dare we ask, is this it? And not because we don't love our lives, but because the roles we carry can get so heavy that we forget who we are or who we were before the responsibilities because the spaces we occupy only just see you in that one role and they forget that you are more. They forget that we are more. That if you want the best of us as your leaders, as your mothers, partners, friends, that we really must create time to listen to women and give them what they need even if it's just space, like we've created here for you guys today on International Women's Day to support the journey to a healthier and whole you. Right now, we're going to get into it very quickly. It might get a little heavy very fast because we have a short amount of time. So, in the chat, I want you to finish this statement for me. In this season of life, I feel like I am losing dot, 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 or in this season, I want more dot, dot, dot. Put it there for you in the chat. So fill in the blank for me. I know y'all could do it. I believe in you. And don't think too hard. Let's just see what you come up with. Right. So throughout this whole conversation, I am going to ask for some of your participation. And I think that's the best way to get the most out of courageous conversations like this, like we're about to have and tackle around things like identity, relationships, faith, motherhood, ambition, and the courage it takes to keep becoming. Right. I think when I think about the idea of becoming her, I don't see it as like burning it all down to become someone new because there are rich lessons in every inch of your story. So it's more about allowing yourself to slow down, to take in restorative perspectives that get you excited and remembering who you've always been. Okay, that girl is dope. She's dope as hell. And she's allowed to grow and evolve her joy, her love, her story, her faith, all of that. And today I have some amazing women who said yes. And it's always an easy yes at first. And they're always like, well, what did I get myself into? So I appreciate that they are on here with me with all my shenanigans to have this incredible conversation with you. I think these are incredible, smart women who work hard on themselves and as well in their lives. And I definitely could not hold this space without them. So I'm going to just introduce them very quickly and they'll tell you a little bit more about you and about themselves. And then we'll get into the conversation. So first up, Dr. Latoya Spalding, who's a marriage and family therapist. I'm going to bring you up, girl. How are you?
Hello, hello, ladies. I am doing good. Thank you so much for having me today, Amanda. I'm excited to talk about this topic, much needed. I am Dr. Latoya Spalding. That is my new last name. I'm sure I'll be talking a little bit about that. So I'm still getting used to letting it roll off my tongue.
Let it roll, girl. Let it roll.
But yes, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am currently residing in the state of Texas, but I've been moved around a little bit. So I am a licensed therapist in multiple states. I specialize in working with couples and really just focusing on sex and relationships. That's me.
Okay, we're so glad to have you. Okay, so we are going to add Miss Latricia Townsend to the community board. She is, oh my gosh, she's a lot of things. She's a woman of God. She's a mom of a whole bunch of kids. She's a first lady. She's a spiritual life coach. Like she's doing some amazing things, and I'm so glad to have her. But I think you could probably tell them better than I can.
You've got covered it all. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies. Yes, my name is Latricia Townsend. I am the founder of Simply Living in Purpose and a transformational empowerment life coach, spiritual empowerment life coach. And my objective is to create nurturing spaces for women to pause, to reflect, and reconnect with God, um, to see who they've created them to be. I'm also a wife of 27 years, a mother of 7, a grandmother of 1. She's 1, I'm a new grandma. Um, and just someone who understands the journey of caring for others while not losing it all. And that is truly becoming, because I'm still figuring that out. So thank you, Amanda, for letting me entertain this space with you as well.
So we're all here. We're giving and receiving all at the same time, and that's why I love this too, right? I think it feeds us as much as it's our opportunity to pour out. And thank you for being here with all those things, right? And I'm also now going to add to the mix Miss Tawana Letterman, who is just open her right, and she is in more corporate spaces and does a lot in the analyst world. But I'll let her tell a little bit about herself. But welcome, Miss Tawana.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Nice to meet everyone on the call. My name is Tawana Letterman, and I am very embedded in financial systems, financial analytics, and operations. I'm considered a leader in the space. I am also a mother of 1 after many trials and tribulations of trying to have a child. I am wife to a husband that has a chronic disease that we've managed for the past 20 years in our household. And I'm a daughter, firstborn, first generation daughter of Jamaican parents that I support and do everything for. I'm very happy to be here because with the help of Amanda over the course of 5 years, she's helped to form me into the person that I am today, where that imposter syndrome is no longer pestering me. I have grown out of seeking validation, and it has really empowered me to be able to be promotable, and move up and ascend quite quickly in my career after learning how to deal with multiple things and juggle multiple things. So I really look forward to sharing some of my story, hearing all of the stories of the wonderful women on this call, and just having this beautiful space to be able to share this with women of color that are just naturally, right, always carrying so much. So, pleasure. Thank you very much, Amanda.
Oh, thank you. Great to be a part of your community and your corner. And I'm going to add now to the mix Miss Katusha Gray, who is a therapist herself, does a lot of work with the mind-body connection and eh, all the things. But outside of that, she's just dope. Like she's going to be talking about joy, and girl is at the rodeo in Texas, but she's also here.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I am at part of my joy is doing things that make me happy. And my good friend who lives in Texas said to me, "You're not doing anything this weekend. You want to come see the Black Rodeo?" I was like, duh, of course I do. And here I am. So I'm in the car, but I'm here with you guys today on Women's International Day. I'm really excited. My name is Katusha Gray. You can call me Kat for short. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a certified yoga teacher. I really practice with the mind and body because it is connected. I'm so passionate about joy and happiness because I had to learn how to take it for myself. I had to learn how to take it for myself. And a part of me learning how to take it for myself was who am I, which we'll get into, and what does joy mean? How do I get joy? Now, if you guys ever follow me on Instagram, all I do is travel. All I do is whatever I want. Not leaving my kids behind because I do have grown kids. Let's not get that twisted. I'm not irresponsible. But I'm very, very much into women, specifically women of color, making sure that we take care of ourselves because we don't crack on the outside. I just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago, but we crack on the inside.
Come on now. All right. So, yeah, I hope you're getting excited already. Okay. So, next we have up Miss Ayana Carrington, who again is just giving up her time. She is in the AI and tech space, and she said, I'm coming, and we're going to talk about our story. I am coming.
Thank you. That is so sweet, Amanda. Hi, everyone. I'm Ayana Carrington. I'm the CEO of a small agency called Your Project Board out here in Metro Atlanta, Georgia. I started the company years ago as a virtual assistant agency, primarily pairing talent, skillful talent with Black women entrepreneurs, because I previously worked in corporate law to be specific, and I saw how Black women were treated in that space. And I thought, okay, these people always push us out. Um, how can I be of support? Since I didn't have no money, I said I can lend skills and all of that. And we have pivoted 1,000 times since our start, and now our focus is on making sure that we give back time to Black women entrepreneurs. Um, and making sure that they understand they have a right to be as sure of themselves. I was going to say arrogant, but as sure of themselves as their white counterparts. I always tell my clients, I wish I could take all of my self-centeredness and give it to them so that they know that they can walk through the world like this. A little bit more about my personal life. I'm the single mom to a child with a rare genetic condition called Boring-Opitz syndrome. I was told at his diagnosis, which was 3 months into him being born, that he may not live. And in January, we made it to 4 years. So I am super happy about that. Along the way, I learned, like Miss Cat is saying, that I had to take my joy back. And so I am grateful to be talking about the processes that I went through to do that. So, yep, that's a little bit more about me.
Oh, y'all are just so amazing. Like we could probably just bottle this up and stop here, but we're not. Oh, I would just love for a moment if we could just take a breath because we're all coming in from different things, we're in different places and spaces, and just to ground us for a second, okay? So I'm going to invite you wherever you are, if you can, to get your feet flat on the floor if you're able to, right? And just kind of settle into your body a little bit. I mean, if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. If not, just kind of gaze down, right? And all you have to do is listen. All right, so I'm going to invite you to just take a big breath in through your nose. So big breath in and let that out slowly through your mouth. Another big breath in and let that go slowly through your mouth. As you just breathe normally for a little bit, I want you to just give yourself some gratitude for being in this space. Tell yourself whatever you need to hear. And on that, taking one more big breath in, letting it go. And I'm going to do one more big in. Hold at the top of that breath. Now let it go. Okay, and what you need to do, if you need to just kind of shake your body out a little bit and just kind of feel that settled version of you. And as you do that, we're going to continue with our flow. And I want to start with something that just nags a lot of us sometimes, and it's who we are becoming, right? I think sometimes we've looked up and we're not really sure who we are, right? We realize that we're living in roles not as ourselves. So I want to start with that. So Kat, I'm going to go to you first. How did you figure out that you were living in a role and not fully as yourself? Miss, I'm chasing joy all over the place. What woke you up to that, girl?
So, a few years ago, I was in a huge transition in my life. And I went to a workshop, and one of the things that the woman said, I wrote it down so we could unpack that. The most spiritual experience you will have in this lifetime starts when you finally choose yourself. And when I wrote that down, I broke down when I got home. I come from a Caribbean household, like probably most women, Haitian American family who catered to men, who never really lived life. I remember my grandmother saying to me at one point, well, I'm not going to rest. There's no such thing as happiness in this life. I'm going to be happy when I'm dead. And I remember that stuck out to me so much, like, dang, in order for us to finally be happy, we going to have to die? No, ma'am. That's not going to be my story. No, ma'am. And then I really just took that on, and I was very unhappy in my marriage. I had small kids. I felt stuck. I felt very unfulfilled. I felt very unhappy. And one day I woke up and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I won't do this anymore. This won't be my life and this won't be my story. And when I left that relationship, I left a lot. I left a lot of friends that left me in the wind. My family didn't agree with me. A lot of them stopped talking to me for this, but it really was a fight. It was a fight for me to find myself and make myself happy. It was a really big fight for me. So here I am.
Yeah, so you had to go against some norms and really kind of tune into what you needed or what you felt like was calling you in a different direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tricia, I'm gonna pivot over to you a little bit in terms of like all the roles that we carry, because we mentioned a lot for you, right? Wife, mother, ministry, leadership. How do you keep faith from becoming an obligation instead of a connection, especially nowadays where like everything feels so automatic? I don't know how faith shows up in that dynamic with all those roles.
First of all, Kat, thank you for sharing. I experienced that, something similar to that. For me, faith is more of a relationship I'm in. It's not just someone or whom, it's whom I believe in, and that's my connection to God. Believing that He has created all things, every space for me, all the places for me. So while faith holds me together, my relationship with Him is what balances me. And so when life is doing whatever it does, and sometimes it's carrying me different places, going back to that center and reminding myself that God started this. And that's always been my conversation. Lord, you started it. So if you started it, you get to finish it. And so somewhere along the way, I've taken control of that. So when I feel that way, or life is so big, and that when life gets overwhelming, that's always my key to let me know something's off, because He promised that He would never put any more on me than I can bear. Now, I did learn this. I often don't know how much I can bear. So it's not often that it's too big for me to bear. Sometimes I just got to find myself in it. And I give an example when I share with women. It's like going to the grocery store and you only meant to get 5 things, but you got 10 in your hand, And sometimes either number one, you got to go get another basket, and sometimes the basket is too far. So for me, it looks like finding an empty shelf, putting all that stuff down, and then picking it up again so I can handle it properly. And then getting myself right onto the line and paying for what I have, because there's no more room for me to carry anything. So I fixed it that way. So that's what that looks like for me. Is remembering my relationship, not just believing in something, but believing that God has created me with a mind. He's given me all of those things, but I can give them back to Him. And since He's the originator, He shows me how to manage them.
Okay. So you can look to God in faith to help you with how you manage all the things. And along the lines of picking up more than what we went in for, how do you reconcile this idea that I think sometimes we feel ungrateful if we want more, right? Or, if we want something different, right? So how do you hold that and go after what you want?
I was pondering on that question. So I have the opposite problem. It is wanting less. Lord, can I please? Because now I have 7
Let this
kids.
cup for me. I don't want no more.
I have 7 kids. I want it too. So it's like walking into this world where I'm thinking, this is what I'm gonna do. This is how this is gonna happen. I've got all, and it's like, no, not that. Or I'm thinking I'm going this way. He's like, pivot this way, and I'm like, wait, no, oh, that's not a part of this plan. And so my struggle is, again, going back to my centering. What do you have for me? What is my purpose? And then He gave me something to help me, which is simply living in purpose. And so now, and that was about 8 or 10 years ago, connecting to what Kat's story was, that was my story as well. And coming when he was repurposing me, if that's the word when he used, with that same story, he said, I'm going to give you something. And I call it a seed. And the seed is simply living in purpose. Every time I write it down, every time I email, it reminds me. And the first word is simple. When it's too much, it's too much. And God didn't create this big old, if he gave me all of this stuff, there's still some simplicity in there. And he is the simple one, so that's how, I don't even know if I'm answering your question. So when guilt comes in, when all of those things come in, I have to start unpacking that. Take that off, take that off. Now that's been a journey and I'm still journeying through that. But as I'm going along, he'll stop and say, okay, well, we don't need that. Why are you holding that? Now that's a whole conversation and that's not an easy, let me just throw it off. That could be like a year's worth of digging into things, I think that's how I found Amanda. That was one of my pit stops to you know what, let's take that off because where I'm taking you, you can't carry that. So I hope I answered that question.
Girl, you answered a lot. So I want to put this in the audience. You want more or you want less? Because this was about being okay, wanting more. And Latricia just said, no, ma'am. Sometimes it's about less. And, and while you guys do that, Ayana, I'm going to pull you into this because sometimes there is guilt about wanting more, or maybe in this case, there's guilt around wanting less. Right? Maybe we do want things to be simple, but the messaging is different or the experience is different, right? It's about the story that we tell ourselves about what our life is supposed to look like. And I'm wondering for you, was there ever a moment where you realized the story you had been telling yourself about your life needed to change?
Yes. And goodness, I'm going to try to keep it nice and simple. As when I was younger, I wasn't supposed to be a mom. I wasn't even supposed to be a business owner. I wasn't somebody that wanted to talk to people at all. I grew up similar to all of y'all, first gen American. My parents are from Barbados. I was used to ducking behind my father when he spoke and hiding away and all of that. And the most I talked was in class. So I thought I was going to be an accountant with a briefcase, no kid, an apartment in New York City. And now I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia. All I do is run my mouth. And, and I'm a single mom, and I love that. But it took reconciling multiple times along my journey with I'm completely veering off of what I thought I wanted and having to sit in quiet and grounding with God to hear, but I'm taking you somewhere better, even if it looks horrible. And there are times where I was like, you are my biggest op, God. How could you? Like, I wanted this life. And it's like, you gave me a child with a diagnosis. How could you? How could you do this to me and my child? And it's like, no, I'm taking you somewhere. I'm going to use you to help others. It's like, okay, but I wanted to be an accountant or a lawyer. And so I think one of the things is like I had to offload a lot of what I wanted and start looking back at all of the things I've been through and was like, no, he's been leading me this way the whole time, pulling me. And I'm like, nope, no, thank you. He's like, listen, I put you on stage as a child, even when you didn't want to talk. You danced, you can perform, right? I put you in front of these people who took interest in you because these are the people who are going to help you when things feel hard. I'm going to put it in your life for you to have diverse communities. You have friends who are from East Africa, West Africa, the Caribbean, Asia. And these are the people who are going to come together and help you tell the story to help other people. And so, kind of trying to go off of what Ms. Townsend said, it was so eloquent and just perfection. Um, the journey looks complicated and difficult, but when you put it with God, when you get with God, He simplifies it so that you can keep going. And to help you look back on all the ways He was preparing you for that, right? You got into ballet school. Why is that important now at almost 40 years old? You got into school in Atlanta, Georgia. Why is that important at almost 40 years old? So I hope I answered your question, Amanda.
Listen, I think whichever direction this goes, it was meant to be. And you guys are just like amazing so far. And I love the idea of varying off, right? Sometimes we think the path that we went on, even if it was hard, there's like this sadness, the anger that's around it, but we may not see how it's going to help us get to where we need to go. And I'm going to shift back to Kat on this one. You know, I think you've done something that many women struggle with, and it's sort of like building this life after you thought that you had a life, and you went and built community after something significant shifted, and you sought that out, right, through your book clubs, friendships, travel. Was there a moment for you where you realized that you needed to rebuild your life around what actually brought you joy, right? Because
Mm,
things definitely went off course for you.
mhm. Such a great question. So during the divorce, I was really broken because I was with my ex-husband for since I was 23. So I was with him for the majority of my life. I was very, very broken. And I decided to go back to therapy. Yes, therapists go to therapy too sometimes, right? So I decided to go back to therapy. And one of the things that my therapist said to me is, we need to get back to who you are. And I was like, I don't really know who that is. I've been a mother and a wife since I was 23. I don't know who that girl is. And one of the things that stuck out to me is sitting down and figuring out what are some of the things that made me happy once upon a time before being a mother and before being a wife. And I wrote down a couple of things. And one of the things that I liked was I love to read. I'm a huge, huge book reader and a book nerd. And one of the things that I thought about was, well, since you're losing so many people, why don't you start a book club and make it a little bit more social? Because Black women have such a hard time with making friends. I don't believe in that, but that's the stereotype of us. And I just put it out there into the universe, but I manifested it. I said, here's what I want, God. I want a dope group of women, no bias to anyone in the room, but I wanted Black women. I wanted a dope group of Black women that not only we could read, but we could hang out. It's going to be social. We're going to get to know each other and we're going to be good friends. And I just put it out there. 20 women showed up and we became tighter than I don't know what. That was 6 years ago. That was 6 years ago. And then from there, I said to myself, well, I also like to travel. My kids are getting bigger. Not everybody is in the same space as me, but you're not going to give up not traveling because people can't go with you. What are you going to do? All right, so I'm going to join the travel group. I joined the travel group and I knew nobody in the group, nobody. And I went to multiple places with them and had an amazing time. So going back to that original theme of making yourself a priority and really choosing you and making sure your joy, your happiness is everything.
I love that. And I think it requires a little bit of bravery. And that's what I'm hearing, right? I think we underestimate how brave it is to start again or to connect with others, right? And Latoya, I want to pull you in for a moment because reinvention is a part of your story too, right? Was there ever a season where you had to rebuild your life and rediscover yourself?
Yes, yes. And as I'm sitting here listening to everyone else to speak about their stories, it reminds me a lot of my story as well. I just actually went through this reinvention, if you will. This year, my word of the year is reset. So this is a new year for me. It's a new year, and I'm very thankful for that. But no, I was married as well before. I was married for 19 years and I had 4 children. So I definitely, it looked as though we had what everyone wants. You know, it's Black love. We got together very young. We got married, and I want to say, we were 20 when we got married. And so from there, what did I do? I started building this life. And it was a life that was not exactly what I wanted, but I was still striving to get to what I wanted. And what I had to really learn to do is be me, unapologetically me. But I had to get there, and it took some time. So when the transition came, when we started talking about divorce, we're 19 years in, and we have these little babies, and we're trying to figure out what are we going to do. We had just actually moved in 2019. We moved to Atlanta from California, and so I was out there living in Atlanta with my husband and my kids, and then out of the clear blue sky comes this divorce. I didn't know we were going to end up getting a divorce. We were working in ministry, working with the married couples groups, and then we had even been doing couples coaching together where we were supporting other couples. Now their relationships were thriving.
Right? Yeah, we're doing all
Like,
the things.
right. Yeah, they were doing good, but we were not doing good. So I think that a big piece of it for me was recognizing that this does not have to be what it is. It's there's more to love, there's more to marriage than what I had. Now, if I could have stayed back then, I would have stayed forever because I made a commitment. I mean, I'm in it forever, right? But as the situation unraveled without me really wanting it to unravel, I was left with the pieces and I had to make a decision on what I was going to do from there. So I've been going through this period of transition. It's been about 4 years now since we separated and divorced. And so now here I am, I'm on the other side of it. And now I can look back and say, I'm so thankful that I made the decision to make the best choice for me and take those steps that I needed to take in order to be able to move into what God has for me. And I believe that my life now, I put into the chat earlier, the word is alignment. I'm looking for alignment because I've seen the way that everything unfolds and comes together. And all I got to do is take that next step. And somehow it arrives, the ground underneath me arrives there for me to take that step. And walking by faith like that is what's gotten me through these last few years.
Ugh, this is just so good in so many different ways. Wow, coming into alignment, and I'm going to try to put two questions together here, and thank you so much for that. And it's something to think about, right? Where things can look good on the outside, and then it sometimes isn't for us on the inside. And then how do we start to reconcile that? And I'm going to come back to you for a second, Kat, for anyone who's listening, right? Who feels like they don't know how to reconcile, like they're feeling lonely and disconnected, right? How would you say to them to approach their joy? But I'm also going to
Mm,
mix this up a little bit because someone in the chat had a question. What if your joy comes from serving others?
mm,
So, how do we handle our joy, but
mm.
also when it's in connection to someone else?
Mm. So what I always tell people that come see me at the practice as well, I forgot to mention, I also see patients and I have a practice, is if we get so caught up with life and the mundanes of working, you don't really make time for your happiness and your joy. So even though I'm in a different space in my life because I have older kids now, so I have a little bit more free time. But for some of us who don't, we could schedule our fun. We could schedule our joy. I meet with my book club once every third week of the month. So that is something that I look forward to and something that a lot of the women who have smaller kids uh look forward to. Schedule your dinners, your weekend trips. Everything doesn't have to be spontaneous if you don't have the time, but you could say, you know what, I have this time coming up on Saturday on the 15th. What can I do? Maybe I could try that restaurant that I've always wanted to do. Maybe I could go to this play I've wanted to see,
Mhm.
and learn to enjoy your own company. You don't always have to roll with people, right? So I think becoming less lonely is also about connecting to yourself. You
Mhm.
could connect to other people and still feel lonely because you're not really fully connected to yourself. So the real task in finding joy and happiness is connecting to you and choosing you. And what does that look like for you? And maybe that means a help with a therapist. Maybe that means writing things down that makes you feel joyful, that makes you feel happiness. But we have to find joy within ourselves first before we could connect to others.
Yeah. And I think that parallels well with if you do find your joy in others, because that's okay too. I don't think we're trying to take that away from you. I think we're also asking you to look at what about you, right? What helps you? What brings you joy? And I think Kat started there where she talked about she had to make that list of the things that she liked, right? And she started to lean into those things. So taking time to figure that out so you have that for you and you could still have these pieces that it is connected to others and entwined with others, right? Like I love my kids, they bring me joy, but I got no problems leaving them to go somewhere, right? Because I was a different person before them, right? So they get a piece of that joy, but I should also get a piece of that joy too. Um, Tawana, I'm going to bring you in here and this idea of balancing all the things, right? And I think sometimes our joy gets caught up in our roles as the fixer, the problem solver, the mama, the wife, all the things, right? So balancing career, responsibility, that drive for success. Have there been moments for you when the pressure to do everything right really felt heavy?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've felt like two elephants were on my chest, right? When I have a father that has dementia that I'm helping to run my parents' household. I'm a high performer at work and considered the glue where I am in most places. So I'm coordinating, mentoring, delivering at work. Um, I have a household, right, that I'm head of household, but I also have, a husband that has multiple sclerosis with a 9-year-old, right? So it's just, I've been so overwhelmed. And in my past life, I became so depressed from being so overwhelmed. And I would kind of lock myself away and stop talking to people and just stay inward and be in my head. And with the help of my evolution, right, after meeting Amanda, I learned to give myself grace, right? Because it was almost because we have this Caribbean background, and I feel like a lot of people here can relate, right? You're taught to be this strong individual that never breaks, right? You are supposed to have this forward facing persona that is impenetrable, right, by weakness. And for me, I had to learn to give myself grace. It's okay to feel overwhelmed and it's okay to to honor that feeling, but it's also okay to say, you know what? I was depressed, I'm overwhelmed. I'm gonna feel this for a bit. I'm gonna go cry it out, but then I'm gonna move on, right? And I'm gonna live to fight another day. And there's gonna be times where I'm down, but that doesn't mean to stay down. It means I'm human. It means I need to give myself grace. It means I need to delegate, right? It means that, I'm not going to get things done 100% the way I want it to get done. But if I seek out that help, right, that's going to help to alleviate that pressure. And that's not weakness, that's self-care, right, at the end of the day. So, yes, I experience pressure all the time. Thank God I'm processing that better in my older age after years of having coaching, right? And understanding that it's okay to give myself grace. So yes, I think all of us can relate to that. And just remember, give yourself grace and it's okay. Go cry in that corner, but then, dust yourself off and then get ready for the next fight or the next day. And it doesn't have to be a fight, right? It could just be like, I'm just moving to the next thing now on my list. But that's how I've learned to manage that.
That is very Caribbean. Dust yourself off, dust it off, and get up.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Yes.
So, I love the idea that you're bringing to this about sort of like the persona, right? Like what we bring to the table and what we're dealing with, right? And sometimes we do have to give that space, what we're dealing with. And I want to look at the persona for a second too, because I think a lot of us, or at least some of us in like spaces where we've got to work on with other people and our success depends on other people, that can create its own intensity, right? So for you, has there ever been a moment where in your career where you felt like you just didn't belong or fit in that space? Like how did you navigate that? Right? Like what do you do when you are the talented one and you don't quite fit, or you're just on
Yeah.
the other side dealing with fit in general? And we all know what I mean by fit, but go ahead.
Um, you know, historically, my whole life, I have been the only in school. Starting from when I moved to Long Island to an all-white area where they tried to not sell my parents a house, and my dad just took it upon himself to go direct, for sale by owner. To my first job at an Irish and Italian sprinkler, the number one sprinkler company in New York City, right? Dealing with people just having their little microaggressions and their unconscious bias that they don't even realize, right? They just don't believe they, oh, what school did you go to? Where, those questions that you get. I have been fortunate enough, thank God to my parents, my mother and my father, where majority of the time in any of those situations, I knew that I belonged there, right? I wasn't looking for that like external validation of you need to prove yourself to me because I had the fortunate experience of being in Brooklyn, going to that all Black Catholic school from my foundation, having a Black doctor, a Black lawyer, having all of these high performers in my family. And it gave me a sense of pride, right? That when I did go into these white spaces, it's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna let you all know what we're about. It gave me additional pressure because I also felt like the representative, right, of the Black people because I was in those only white spaces majority of the time. What I can say is being in a boardroom with 10 men and me being the only Black woman, being in a startup with 300 people and me being the only Black woman is, I carry myself with pride, but there are times I feel very lonely. And I feel like I wish that I had some other, right, Black woman. I can't even say another minority, and no disrespect to anyone else on there, but it's very hard because it's sometimes you feel like the most hated person out there, right? Individual, being a Black woman, being an educated Black woman, right? And it does feel like you're being attacked when you're out there. But for me, what I'm taking away is these people are scared, right? They've never had the experience of being around such an intelligent, Black woman, and not to be conceited, but more so like I would get some feedback sometimes like you're so, you speak so well and you're so eloquent. And it's like, well, what did you think I was going to be? Right? Like, why are you saying these things to me? Right? And being of bred from a mother that, worked on Wall Street for 43 years was very helpful to me because she gave us this tenacity, right? To always ensure that we let people know we belong where we're at, right? And not to ever feel less than. But that doesn't mean that there aren't times that I don't feel that. Right? So I want to be very clear on that. Like I do feel that sometimes, right? I did feel that a lot more in my younger days. I'm approaching 50, so it's very different now, right? But in my younger days, I would feel that a little bit, it's a little crack in my armor, right? And then I would come home and I would like really overanalyze, as Amanda knows, right? Why I felt that way and like, what can I do about that and how should I fix that? That again, with time, right? And with coaching, I've learned to give myself grace. Like, oof, Tawana, that was a rough meeting. You were the only one in there. But you know what? You did good because you got your idea, your point across. You didn't let this person that was trying to cut you off, finish your sentence, right? You persisted in a respectful manner, right? And I think that as long as you know that you belong there, right? Majority of the time, okay, because you're gonna have those times where you're like, damn, all right, today's not the day. But you're gonna have majority of the time, you feel well in any space. Like I've battled imposter syndrome, right? But you want to know where that imposter syndrome came from? The need to be perfect because I was the only Black person in that space. It wasn't even from these people like asking, like thinking that I don't believe. You know what I'm saying? It was about like, I need to know everything about everything. And then like I'm with these people and they don't know, majority of them don't know anything, right? And they just come in, they've been faking it till they make it because they have that entitled experience, right? But us, we're like, no, we need to know everything. We come in with receipts. We need to know the full 100%. We do not. Right? No, we do not. We know enough. And if we don't know something, we'll come back and answer your question later. I need to go research it. And that's okay. Right? That wasn't okay for me years ago, but that's okay now. And that helps me alleviate the pressure of being in these spaces. Because y'all, like, we come here with the excellence and we got people doing the subparness, you know what I'm saying? And it is like, oh, okay. All right, well, you know what? I'm gonna relax for a second because I'm here getting ready to go into battle and you're over here drinking a lemonade. You know what I'm saying? And like we're both, we're both getting paid the same. So that's how I look at things now. And
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to have evolved to this point. But I still have my bad days. So
Yes, and I love that honesty too, right? Because I think we have to see both sides, because sometimes we just put out this one-sided image of who we are as a strong Black woman and all of that stuff. But I hear from you great little nuggets that I hope y'all caught. And if you caught something, put it in the chat. But I hear know that you belong, right? I hear to persist, to be okay with asking for help, and to like notice that need for perfection. And I think it's asking yourself questions from there, like, do I really need to show up that way, right? Do I really need that? I was like she said, because most of the time, like we are already ready. And if we're not, we already know how to figure it out. So it's gonna be okay. And I think if you can keep this in the back of your head, it kind of takes some of the pressure off, right? And you may not fully be able to still be yourself and be comfortable, but we can take some of the pressure off.
That's
Right?
it.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tawana. Thank you. And I'll hang out with the same concept, I think, of like belonging, right? Because I think sometimes we don't just struggle within work, we can also struggle within relationships. And gonna tag you back in, Latoya. I think we all kind of understand this tension between growing personally and professionally, and also trying to have like healthy relationships. And you shared you've experienced marriage, divorce, and then just got married again. Congratulations. But how do we make it work? And before even how do we make it work in terms of relationship, because I think a lot of this conversation is about self, what are some of the quiet ways that women protect themselves from intimacy without even realizing it? I think it's how do we make it work for us first, right? How do we begin to like heal the parts of us that might keep us from love or keep us from being in healthy relationships?
Yes, yes. This is a good question because this is something that is definitely going on. There's this strong Black woman syndrome. There's this idea of I have to show up in a certain way, and I want to make sure that I protect myself, right? I'm the only one who can show up for me. And what it does is it puts up defenses. It puts up walls. And walls are there to protect us from what's coming in, but it also prevents us from getting things that are actually for us if we're not careful. So I think the biggest thing is to learn yourself. I love therapy. I've been going to therapy since I started in college. It's part of the process of getting licensed. Anyway, most states they will require it for you, or I'm sorry, most school programs will require you to get some sort of therapy. So that's when I really got started. But I realized how much I learned about myself by going in and being the center of attention for a moment. When I go to therapy, it's not about my family. It's not about what the children need. It's not about anything like that. It's about me learning me. And what the reason why I feel like that's so helpful is because when we're just trying to know ourselves, I might say, I know me already. I know what I need. I know what I don't need. I know what this person's trying to say to me and what they expect me to do or say. Those are all projections and thoughts that are going on in our minds. We are not necessarily bouncing those off of anyone else. And so I think that that's the thing, is to recognize that we have blind spots. So there might be a moment where I think I'm protecting myself by pushing someone away or by cutting them off as soon as they do one thing that looks like it might be a flag that might be a little orange or something. Let me cut them off immediately. Sometimes those situations are actually opportunities for me to learn more about myself. And if I'm just pushing someone away in order to defend myself, then once again, I may be shutting down something that might have been meant to be in my life in order to help me to grow and learn. So that's what I would say, is learning that by figuring out more about ourselves, then we can put up healthy boundaries. We can be more aware of things that are happening as they're happening, as opposed to having this list of, if anybody does this, or this, that's it, they're done.
How about
Right, they're done. And this is what I actually learned during despite all my education and coaching couples and doing therapy with couples, all of the things. During my dating process, what I learned is, instead of having a list, ask yourself, how do I feel when I'm with this person? So really shifting to the space of, you're talking about the mind-body connection, really noticing what comes up for me when this person says this or that. What comes up for me when I'm in a situation and I feel very uncomfortable? How can I tell that I'm feeling uncomfortable? How do I know I need to do something different? So really just learning to trust what's coming up for us. And instead of judging ourselves for that, making ourselves feel ashamed for that or guilty, like, oh, I'm just being selfish, or any of those kinds of thoughts where we're judging, stop and ask ourselves, what is my body trying to tell me right now? And how can I listen to that in order to pivot to get myself to the healthier space that I'm really meant to be in?
Yeah, and there's like some self-accountability in that too, right? Where it's not about the other person, going back to that question about, when your happiness is locked into other people, because sometimes I think in a relationship we can give that away too, where we expect the other person to know all the things for us and make us happy. And but I hear you asking us to ask ourselves what's going on in that moment, and maybe what do you need and what needs to happen for you.
Exactly. That's what I tell my clients. Two questions, very simple. When you're feeling something come up, what do I feel? What do I need? That's it. If that's all you have to think about, it really lessens the amount of stress that you're putting on the situation. And it really forces you to turn around and look at yourself.
I don't know if all of you like looking at yourself, but you need to. So, wow. So sometimes some of us, we are doing that work for ourselves, right? And I think on the flip side now, how do we navigate that space when you do feel like you're the only one growing in a relationship, right? Maybe you are going to therapy, maybe you are doing the work, you're reading all the books, right? Or just naturally evolving, right? With age and all that good wisdom. How do we reconcile when the other person may not be doing that at the same pace as you? Because I think sometimes resentment can build in that space.
Yeah. Resentment definitely can build, especially over time. Being in a marriage for such a long time, I was able to really watch things on a more long-term basis. So, thinking about growing at different paces, I think that is something that is to be expected because it's two different humans. They come into the relationship from two different spaces with different backgrounds, different baggage, different things they need to work through. And then they're placed in the same spot. So naturally they're not going to grow evenly necessarily. But I think the goal is to take a look at things over time. Are you seeing the growth over time? Are you seeing the effort over time? Are you seeing the reflection? Really just helping people to recognize that it's okay for us to grow at different paces, but are we both growing? Are we becoming better versions of ourselves? And then if the answer is, well, no, I feel like I'm growing and the other person's not growing. I mean, I think that's still a bias because you're saying that you think you're growing and the other person's not growing. So I would say definitely maybe have somebody else chime in on that, maybe therapy or something like that. But if you really get to a point where you're looking at the situation and you're recognizing that, you know what, I'm growing really, and it's been years, and this other person just doesn't seem to be growing, then I think that places you in a space where you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do about that? And I tell my couples, who come in and they're complaining about this type of a thing where they feel like they're growing and the other person isn't. I ask them, if this person never changed anymore for the rest of your life together, would you want to be with them? Because we can't go into a relationship expecting someone to change. And that is unfortunately what a lot of women do. That's what I did. Right? It happens very often when you do get married young, I believe. You come in and you're growing, and so you're thinking, hey, they're going to grow into what I expect them to be, right? And so we marry potential, and that's something that's definitely it happens. And when that does happen, and then the other person doesn't grow as the way that we expected them to, then we can become disappointed and regretful and resentful. When the reality of it is, they are who they are. And so a big piece of it is, can you accept and appreciate and love and value this person for who they are? Or can you not? And if the answer is no, I can't, well, then maybe you should reevaluate whether or not that relationship is a relationship you want to be in.
Touche. And I think such great questions. And it can apply in that space, whether you're married, whether you're just in a dating relationships, or even like in your career, right? In any relationship that you're in, right? What if this doesn't change? Are you going to be okay with that? Can you accept it and can you appreciate that? My goodness, thank you. You've given us a lot to think about. And I think in this space of becoming her, it's about asking ourselves these questions so that we can move and evolve into the place that we need to be, right? And sometimes the hardest part about that is realizing that the story that we've been living isn't the one that you want to keep telling. And Ayana, many of us grow up learning how to survive and not necessarily how to own that story, right? Was there a moment where you realized your story actually had power?
Yes, and I just want to say, because I know you asked me a question, I am thoroughly enjoying this, and I know we are almost at time. This
I
needs to be
know,
like
I'm
a
trying to move you
monthly.
on along. It's so good. I
This got to
know.
be a
I
monthly thing.
know to self keep it together and keep it moving. So
I'm like chewing on all the bits. I'm like, I'm taking notes. I'm that's so good. Okay, so sorry, my question again was about story.
stories. Yeah. Owning
Yeah.
that story, was there a moment where you realized your story actually had power? I don't think we always recognize that our stories do.
Yes, I realized it when I was out on my own and I had to advocate for myself and my child. It started off as like being a business owner and you have the script, right? Like a business owner, I'm doing this for this community, da, 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 da. But I had to be reconfirmed when I had my son and realized I'd have to be an advocate for someone they said probably wouldn't talk or walk or anything like that. And it was something I had to rely on, but something that also became powerful, being able to walk into a room and say, I am the person representing this child, but I've also, before him, I've been all of these things, and that's what got me here. Because um, one, it showed that I was a part of this team with my son, but also because it's powerful. It gives you the ability to connect with people, right? All of us being, or the majority of us being Caribbean extraction, that is something very important. That's a cultural relation. Some of us going into performing arts school, another relation. Some of us being a part of certain programs, that's another relation. Um, and when you are a Black woman, regardless if you're a Black woman that's African or Afro-Caribbean, or you're from Nebraska, yes, I've met Black people from Nebraska. They want us to all squeeze into this. I promise, I've met Black people from Alaska since this journey
My
has
brother
begun.
lives in Nebraska, so
See? Right. They want us to all fit into these tiny little boxes where they can hold us. And if you step out of that box, you must be amazing. The way Tawana and Dr. Luther, you are amazing. You must have gone through such amazing things. And you're like, no, my mom was on Wall Street, girl. Right? And so owning your story gives you this ability to step away from being a monolith that so many other groups want us to be, as Black people, as women. But it also gives us the power to relate to other people on a personal level, which for some weird reason, that is something God really wants me to do. He wants me to see people for the individuals that they are, regardless of who they are. And I think that's why he's made my journey what it is, why he's put me in so many strange things where I've been like, how did I get here? Right? Like, how am I now an advocate for rare disease when like I knew nothing about that 4 years ago? I didn't even know what my son's thing was called 4 years ago. And it just allows us to show up authentically as ourselves. So when Tawana is that only Black woman in the space, she can be, hey, I'm Jamaican. Hey, I was taught this and I was taught this, and someone else can peek up from Oklahoma and be like, I'm not Jamaican, but I was also taught this and taught this, and you make that sort of relation easier. Um, so yeah, that's it about
I love
that.
that. So if someone really doesn't understand their story yet, right? Or they're trying to find the value and the power in it, right? I think sometimes we don't think we have one. We just kind of live through this life. We've had all these little things happen, but it's not as good as the next one, or not something I can talk about, and we don't see the value. Can you walk us through, or just tell us quickly, how can we shift that to owning that story?
Yeah, so one thing that I do with my vision consultants, I have this whole service called Vision and Support, where it's like I want you, again, like I said in the beginning, I like my Black women clients to be as arrogant as I am. You know what I mean? And I, right,
Yeah.
like I don't have any of the credentials y'all have, and I walk through everyone like I'm here. I'm here. One thing that I want everyone to do is start writing out all of the experiences you have. Um, in America, we have this thing called like suffering porn, where it's like, oh my God, the worse the story, the better it is because, oh my God, like were you starving as a child? It doesn't have to be that dramatic. It could it could just be like, hey, no, I actually had a great childhood and I went to Yale and I did these things and I joined the Glee Club and write all of those things out because people can't relate to who you are authentically if you decide that I want to be a story of a hard knock life, or I want to be a story of someone who grew up with a gold spoon or silver spoon in my mouth. People can't see you. And I think for me, when I started to write out, I immigrated at 5, I moved to Bed-Stuy, I did this, I did that, I got a scholarship, I became a single mom, which is something no one likes to hear about, right? And then even in becoming a single mom, it's like, yeah, it was hard, but it wasn't hard the way people think it should have been hard. It was like, no, we had resources, we had this. I wasn't like put out on the street. It's important to tell those stories so people don't try to box you in, and they also make space for other people to be authentic too. I think we're in a time where we are realizing we need to be authentic. We don't want to go to our graves being anyone other than ourselves or live our lives being anyone other than ourselves. There'll always be projection, there'll always be perception, but at least you know you're honest with who you are.
Yeah, yeah. And I think if you really hold on to that, it should be resonating within you, right? Like, do I want to go to my grave not authentic to who I am, right? And thinking about what that means. And I love the idea of looking at the things that's happened to you, because sometimes life just happens so fast for us that we miss all these parts that are probably pretty amazing. Even in the crazy, there's probably some little nuggets in there for us. Thank you so much for that. Y'all, like, this has been so good. And I'm trying to wrap this up because I didn't want to go over an hour, but was it amazing? It was. Drop it for me in the chat. I hope everyone's cup is filled because I'm about to ask you to spill it over. So before we close today, I want to just invite everyone here to do something small but powerful. So today's experience really goes deeper in your life, right? Like, we're not just talking to talk, we're talking so you can see things differently, so things can shift for you. So I'm going to ask you, besides waking up Monday in full arrogance, walking into every room like, aha, do you know who I am? I want to know what your commitment is, right? So I commit to blank this week. What is your commitment? And I want you to leave that in the chat, even if you got to just let it sit for a second and roll through your mind. What is your commitment? So I'm not just coming out here. It's like when you leave a good church sermon, you're like, yeah, that was good, but you don't even know what the word was. We don't want that for you. I want you to really think about it. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's resting. Maybe it's speaking up or not playing small. Maybe it's writing out your story. Maybe it's asking how I'm showing up in relationships, how I'm showing up at work. Maybe it's taking 1 hour for yourself. Maybe it's booking that retreat with our sponsors. New Connect Restore, right? As you get that together, I want to really leave you with, everything that you've heard tonight. I think we've heard about our story, joy, faith, belonging, relationships, connections, all the different parts of who we are as women. And the thing that I hear most from us is that we often don't have time. So I really also want you to think about whatever your commitment is, can you commit to the time required for that? Right? And whether you do that right after this call, I think don't take too long to do it. Figure out, when am I going to do the thing? Where am I going to create time for this person that I want to be, that I need to be? Okay, we make time for deadlines, family, people who rely on us, responsibilities for the world, all that good stuff. So the question isn't whether or not you have time, because you do. It's whether you're willing to claim even just a little bit of that for yourself. And I got to do that too. But can you make that time for yourself, right? As all of us, we're busy, all of us are ambitious, we are that high capacity woman. And I think change has to happen for us, but it doesn't always have to happen in dramatic ways. It doesn't always have to be all or nothing. It can just be 1% more. So if you did 1% more toward the woman that you are becoming, what would that look like? Would that commitment happen? That moment of rest, that moment of joy, that boundary that you finally honor, right? You don't have to leave today and do everything, but please don't leave here and do nothing. Okay, so I want you to think about that, your one thing, your commitment, and whatever that 1% is that you're committing to. All right, and that said, I thank all of you for being a part of this conversation with us today. It has truly filled my cup. I hope that it has filled yours. Let me look at y'all commitments. I commit to completing something that is an investment to myself. Why not? Stop giving it to everybody else. So whatever that is, I would go break that down though. Okay, what's that specific thing that will be an investment to you? And when are you going to make time for it? Making time for walks with God this week. When is that going to be? Monday, Tuesday, evening, lunch break? Get as specific as you can. Taking steps to a new career. Well, come on. Take a big step. What's that looking like? Continuing self-care. Scheduling a spa day. Ow! Girl, I need to do that too. I'm sitting here like, whew, I need a massage.
No.
Yes. So whatever that is, don't just say I'm gonna do it. Go create that time for it because it's there, right? So again, everyone, I thank you. Our panelists, y'all were so amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Latoya, Latricia, Ayana, Tawana, Kat, who had to step off. I mean, this was truly a pleasure. Thank you for bringing your full selves into this space. If you need any information that you want to leave there in the chat, but I'll also send it out later as well. And then to those of you in the chat, we thank you for giving yourself time today. And I think if you can give it here in such a full present way, that you can continue to do that for yourself. And imagine what you will become if you do that, even if it's just, what is my 1% that I could do today? Okay. All right, now I'm gonna do one more thing, but I'm gonna stop recording for this.